Hello, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. I am. Are you ready to do some craft with me today? Today's craft is from the article Alphabet series, and today's letter is the letter L. Now, if you would like to join me in today's craft, you can download these crafts from our article website. Let's get started. Now, the first thing that we have to do is to cut out our craft puzzle. Now, I have already started doing that, so you can start now with me. I have gone ahead and cut my lion's face and his nose and his tail and all the pieces to make his mane around his face. Now, the last thing that I have to do is to cut out my first sheet, which is the letter L. So I'm going to take my scissors very responsibly, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut around my first page of the letter L. Now, when we're cutting, we have to be very careful that our fingers are not close to the scissors. And cutting around, making sure my fingers are quite far from the scissors as they come around. And just about done. And again, moving my fingers away, and that's done. And I'm going to take my piece of paper and I'm going to cut out my picture so I have my guide to go by. Now, this step might be a little bit tricky, so if you would like, ask for some grown-up help. Now, the next step is to glue all our pieces together. Now, I'm going to use my board to help me so you can see what I'm doing. But you can use anything you have at home. You can get some A4 paper from your printer, or if you have A3 or even scrap paper at home. Whatever you have at home, use that for the craft today. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to take my letter L, which looks like this. So today's L is the uppercase L. So it's one line down and a line across. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to stick it on my board like this. And that's my first part of my craft puzzle done. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the lion's head, and that's the second piece that I'm going to glue onto my craft board. So, taking my glue stick around the edges and just a little bit in the center. And I'm going to find the top of my L and I'm going to stick the head just above the L's top head. Now, the next thing I'm going to find is my lion's tail. Now, it looks just like this. I'm going to take my glue stick. I'm just going to try and get some glue on the tail. And now the tail goes at the bottom bit of the L, just on the corner. And if possible, you can tuck it in behind the L. But if that's difficult, just stick it on top like I have. Now, the next thing I'm going to find is the top of my tail, which looks just like a teardrop. And I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue on it, and I'm going to stick that on top of my tail. And the final thing that I have to put on my lion's face is the nose. And now the tricky part. So we have all these pieces of long strips, and we're going to use them to create the lion's mane. Now you can use as many as you want. We've given quite a few pieces of those strips. You can have as much or as little as you'd like. And again, this step might be a little tricky, so you might ask for some grown-up help. So I'm just going to start gluing them one by one. And what I might do is I might take a few first and put some glue on them, so then I can start sticking them all together. And the key is to get as much glue on either ends of them. Okay, so I've done 4 strips. So I'm going to start first on either part of my ear. And this way you kind of start balancing it out so you don't run out. And then I'll put one at the bottom here, and the same thing on the other side. So just be careful not to go onto the tail. And one of the things we might find is that they might be a little bit long. So if you'd like, you can actually cut some of them to make them shorter, like in the picture. I'm going to keep them long like that. Actually, I'm going to make them a little bit shorter. So I'm going to take it up and I'm going to cut them off a little bit. So, and this is what our craft is all about. It's about finding what works for the picture. And I'm going to do the same with these ones as well. Chop and chop. I'm just going to take my glue stick again and just stick the ends so that it does not come off once we're starting to paint them. There we go. And I'm going to take the other little pieces that I cut off and I'm going to use them as part of my next bit of mane. And a little bit of glue here in the center, and a bit on the side here. Now, if we had them a little bit longer, what you would have noticed is that it would probably have gone over the lion's tail. So it's probably best that we cut them a little bit as part of our craft. And this way, you'll have many more pieces of strip in case you want to put lots of strips on the lion's head. Then cut a few more. Take a few together. And they don't have to be the same size, because as you know, our hairs are not always the same length. And that goes the same for the lion as well. So keep going with this step until you think you have enough around your lion's head. And I'm going to keep going and keep going until I filled all the space around. And we'll have some left over at the end, and that's okay. And a few more. And like I said, this can be a little bit tricky, so you can get some help for this step, or if you're brave enough like me, you can do it yourself. But again, I ask for grown-up help all the time when I find things a bit challenging, so it's quite okay to do the same this time. And I think I have enough, maybe just one or two more. Maybe one here, and probably just one more just below it. And there we go. That's step 2 done. So I've taken my entire craft and I've gone ahead and I've first stuck my letter L, and then I've done my face and the tail. And the final thing I had to do was the nose and the hair around the lion's face. Now, step 3 is the fun part, which is the crafting of our alphabet activity. Now, you can use whatever you have at home. If you've got some paints or crayons or textures or pencils or combination of them. If you have craft materials, like if you've got little eyes, you can stick them onto your lion's face. If you've got some crepe paper, or you can use that to create a little bit on the body of your craft. Now today I'm going to use some paints, but what I'm first going to do is, because I'm not going to have time to let my craft dry for this video, I'm going to first do the lion's eyes with my black texture. So I'm going to draw a little circle on top, on both sides, and I'm going to stick in a black dot in the center. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the lion's whiskers and its little mouth. So I'm just going to take my black pen again, and from the bottom do that, and I'm going to draw 3 lines on this side and 3 lines on the other side. And then I'm going to start my painting. So I've gone ahead and I've put my colors on my paint palette. So you can start doing that now if you're going to use paint. So you can take your coloring pencils, which I have here as well, or you can have some crayons as well. So I've taken some orange and some yellow, and then I'm going to use a combination of 2 colors for my lion's mane. So I've got, in my third, I've got orange and brown to make it a little bit darker. So I'm first going to start with my lion's face. So I'm going to take a little bit of a bigger brush, and I'm just damping it on my tissue so that it's not too wet. And I'm just going to go around, and I'm just going to paint my face. And as you can see, I should have let my textures dry a bit more, but that's okay. It's just running a little bit, so I'm just going to try not to rub my paintbrush too much around the face where I've put my textures. Again, around the nose, and taking it around. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the letter L, which is the bottom part of my lion's body. So I'm going to take a little bit more yellow, and I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm just going to run my paintbrush down slowly on the edges and around. And sometimes what I like to do is I like to go around the edges first, and and then painting the middle part of the body. So I just go around like that, and then the middle part. Now, you might go over the edge, and that's okay. Just like you, I'm not a professional painter, but I love to do craft and I love to do painting. So we all make mistakes, and that's fine. As long as we are having lots of fun. And if we're having fun doing this, that's the most important part of our craft activity today. And so I've done my face and I've done the letter L, and now I have to go ahead and do my little tail. So I'm going to take a smaller brush for that, just because it's a little bit finicky. So I'm just going to take a little brush here, damp it again, and take the little bit of yellow that I have left over, and I'm going to go round my tail. Around and up. Now, I've done all the yellow for my craft today. The next thing I'm going to do is the top of my little tail and my nose, because I've got my little brush still. So I'm going to use some of my mixed brown for this, because I want it to be a little bit darker. Now I'm using my guide as my guide for my painting, and I'm using the colors on my guide, but you don't have to do that. This is us being creative, and if you would like to use your own colors or use a combination that I haven't used, that's okay. It's about us having fun and doing our craft the way we like it to be. So I'm going to start off with first my tail top. And again, if you go over and in around the edges, that's okay. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more of a thinner brush to do my nose. I'm just going to damp it a bit because it's a little bit watery and I don't want it to run into my yellow. And this might be a step where you want to use your coloring pencils, because probably have a little bit more control over this part with some pencils rather than a paintbrush. And again, it's totally up to you. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting my mane. So as you can see in the picture, we have alternative colors. So we have one dark color, one light color. So I'm going to start painting my alternative strips the same color that I used to do my tail. Take my paintbrush and I'm going to start from here. I'm just going to go around the edges. And then I'm going to the next one. So I'm going to miss one and then I'm going to start the next one. I think I need to wet my brush a bit because my brush is a bit dry. And then I'm going to the next one. Oops. And as you can see, I went out of the line, and that's fine, because like you, I'm having fun painting. And I'm also sitting in a bit of an awkward position, so I'm finding it a little bit tricky to paint. And again, right to the edge. And just dip my paintbrush again in a little bit of water, and then this one. And again, if you want to paint all your stripes or strips the same color, that's okay as well. You can use the same orange or the yellow or the brown or another color to color all the strips off your lion's mane. And I'm just going to go here, just missed a spot. And I'm going to keep going. And again. and some might be thicker than the others, just to make it a bit more natural. And now the next step is to do the other stripes or the other strips of my lion. So I'm going to use just orange for that, and I'm going to start from this side, and I'm going to go around. Dip again, and I'm going to take my next strip, I'm going to paint it, and I'm going to go around. And I've just got a few more to go. And 2 more. Wet my brush a bit more. And the last one that I have, just around. And if you don't even want to use the strips, that's okay. You can just create your own mane with your paintbrush or your coloring pencils or crayons. Now the last thing I'm going to do is, it's not on my design, but I'm going to use my dark brown, which I have there, to give my lion a little bit of fur. And this is something that you can choose to do, or you can just leave it as is. So I'm just going to just damping the paintbrush all around my letter L and around my tail as well. And a little bit around the lion's face as well. And one of the things that you could do if you have it at home is you can use some shredded paper, and that will give that same effect as well again. And there we go. So our craft is done. So we went through our 3 steps today. We first printed our craft from the article website, and then we used our scissors very responsibly to cut all around the different shapes. And then once we finished that step, we used our glue stick to stick our craft onto our piece of paper. And the final step today was the fun part, which is the actual crafting. I used paints today, but like I asked you before, and I said to you before, you could have used anything you have at home, paints, crayons, or any crafting materials that you have. I had fun doing this craft with you today. I hope you had fun as well. And I hope you're going to join me for my next video.